Monica says interest rates again. Hello all. Interest rates up again. What is going on? Terrible. We'll wait to hear what you have to say about this on the show. Well, thank you, Monica. Give us a second. We'll get right into it. And then we also have one from Dave. Dave says, hey, interest rates went up again. I was just watching the news that they blamed the Trudeau government, and this was on a Canadian news source. So yeah, we have another one. Edward. What does Edward have to say?
Edward's a loyal listener, and he just said, love the show, and he's waiting. That came in yesterday, and he's waiting for this morning to listen.
Well, here we are. So yeah,
here we are in the flesh.
Went up another 0.25% up to 4.75% now. So it's yeah, I'm sure like a lot of people are actually on the sidelines waiting for the interest rates to come down to try to get into the market or waiting it out, and
that's not happening.
Yeah, I guess it was a little bit of a surprise. I think with this rate, I think we were fully expecting. I think Scotiabank predicted what happened, but most people thought probably stay steady for a bit.
If you listen to the Bank of Canada and you listen to what a lot of people are saying, they are saying that this is the only way they can bring things in line is just keep upping the interest rate. So I think until they have it where they want it, we may see more. Randy?
Well, I'm just making some notes here because I got triggered.
No.
Well, before you go on your diatribe, and also some ancillary effects. Again, mortgages, variable rate mortgages. We already had many of them hit their trigger point before this rate hike, and now if you hadn't hit, it's most likely any mortgage that you had signed within the last 3 years, most likely has hit that trigger point. If you had a mortgage where your payment stays the same and this you pay more interest, you're most likely at a time now where you're no longer covering your interest or principal. Your interest really, and you're gonna have to negotiate your terms or pay more or figure it out, because you're now pretty much, if without changing anything, you're in a reverse amortization period, and you're basically your mortgage is actually growing each month, even though you're making whatever payment you're making.
Yeah. Because you're only paying interest now. Some people aren't even
you're not even paying the interest. You're paying just interest, and there's more interest on top of that. So,
yeah.
For
no
example,
principal.
If your mortgage payment is $2,000, your interest is $2,300. So every month you're paying $2,000, but your balance is growing by $300.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. So would this be a question, Randy? So like for older people, let's just say that have their homes paid in full, right? And possibly struggling a little bit. Would this be a good time for them to maybe look at a reverse mortgage? I know that's eat your equity as well, but
interest rates are rising, sweetheart. Older people are not interested in getting into a product where they're paying more and more interest. They see it a little differently than people of today. They see that interest rate is like mafia stuff. So I don't think that's necessarily their solution unless they need the money. Then there are no other options. If they don't need the money, it's better to stay debt-free right now with Tiff Macklin behind the wheel. The real issue here is
why did his mother name him Tiff?
Yeah, so interest rates did go up again. Yes, you're right, Monica, and it does make it very, very hard for people. You wanted to know why it went up. I'm going to go through that in a second. Dave, interest rates up again, and saying something about Trudeau government. Basically with the Trudeau government, the problem is they've got their foot on the gas for inflation. In other words, they're spending money. They're not looking to make cutbacks. So they've kind of got their foot on the gas, whereas the Bank of Canada is like, oh, we don't want spending. So they've got their foot on the brakes. And so, if you're driving your car and one foot's on the brakes and one foot's on the gas, you're stressing out the car, you're needlessly burning fuel, and you're probably destroying your brakes and other things as well. So that's kind of what's happening in government, and that's why Trudeau's name is being mentioned like that. There's a philosophy amongst the elites, the people who have the education to really talk about stuff like this, we really don't have the education to talk about stuff like this. We're just talking from our own perception as laymen. But from the elites, they believe that corporations and governments can't cause inflation. It's us people who cause it. I think that they're absolutely delusional. However, that is the perception. So when you get into a discussion that the government's spending this, they're giving money to these corporations. Oh, but that's not how inflation works. It's like, okay, it's pretty silly, really, because there's always been talk that if you print more money, in essence, today you don't have to print money today. They can just spend it. Uh, Um, and so in essence, while they're just spending it, it's the equivalent of printing it, and that's what helps to cause inflation. And we all know that the printing of money will cause either the deflation of money or the inflation of money. In either way, to us people on the ground, it feels the exact same. We have to pay more money. If our money's deflated, then it's worth less. And so we need more money to buy the same goods. And so that feels the same as inflation, where we need more money to buy the same goods. To us, it's the same thing. To them, there's a technical line there. Um, but the reason why, for Monica, that the interest rates went up again is basically two main factors, one sub factor. So the economy has it's been around 0 to 3% floating around there. So it hasn't been on fire per se, but there are some, and so it's been kind of cooperating with the Bank of Canada, and inflation was coming down.
I mean, inflation.
And so, no, the economy
Okay.
and inflation. Yes, inflation has, the economy has been cooperating, basically listening to the Bank of Canada and doing what they want, and relatively speaking, and inflation was doing the same. But inflation decided to go out on its own and make a little bit of a turn to go back up. And I think it went from 4.3 to 4.4, and because it was pointing in the other direction, it woke up the Bank of Canada. That's one reason. The other reason is the job market. The job market is on fire. What the Bank of Canada was kind of hoping is that there would be like 25,000 new jobs being built, but there was like 40, 20, 30, and then 100 and change each one of those months. And the 100 and change was the most recent job announcement. So it was like 4 times what they were hoping it would be. And therefore, they were saying, okay, well, while the economy or the GDP may be running relative to what we want, jobs are markets too hot, inflation turned the other way. And if they were to look at things like the real estate market, for some very strange reason, it could be that it was a spring market, went on fire. And that market we all saw when it cooled down in the third week of May, but the fourth week of May. But the Bank of Canada doesn't see these things. They're not in on the ground working it, so they don't know what's going on until they get their reports, which is long after the activity has happened. So while they thought that the real estate market was hot, the truth of the matter is it was hot and now it's cooling down, but they have to make their announcement in between learning these things. So with inflation turning the corner, jobs being so high, they really didn't have a lot of choice. I'm not going to necessarily blame it on TIFF, but I will say this. I was hoping that it wouldn't happen, and I was betting that it wouldn't happen as well. And the reason being is because the side effects of it, not because of what he should do. It's because the banks are in so much financial issues over this increase in prices, the increase in interest rate that we've had, that they're holding mortgages that just don't even have a value. They're basically negative value mortgages, and this is making up a pretty decent size of their portfolios. which means that the banks aren't as stable as they used to be. And I would think that that Tiff would realize that that was him that caused that issue. But there's one other reason why we would think that it's not going to go up. And that's because of a thing that the Bank of Canada likes to pride themselves on, and that's forward guidance. They're sort of like guiding us of what's going to be going on so we can conduct our lives and conduct our businesses in accordance. But they didn't do that.
I was going to say they made a big mistake.
They did not provide the forward guidance, and therefore most of the marketplace didn't believe that they would do it, considering all the havoc they've caused. But we have to remember, we have the magical Tiff at the helm, and while he may be a brilliant economist and a professor at the University of Toronto and one of the leading people in Canada too for economics, I'm not sure if we all like the way in which he's governing the Bank of Canada, and he is kind of a little bit rogue. And while he's doing his job, and I wouldn't want to have his job,
No.
it's a bad job right now, but I believe he created this environment when he did the QE. So you don't get away with it. You don't get away with printing close to $4 billion worth of Bank of Canada money, settlement banks balances to the banks. And then a high inflation follows because you are building this non-printed money, right? It's non-printed money, but it's the Bank of Canada's form of printing money. And that is and that they don't believe increases interest rate. But look what happened to interest rate. They went absolutely silly. And now he has to manage it back down. And managing it back down is very, very tough job for anyone. So this is why he looks like a bad guy. But unfortunately, I still feel it's a lot of his fault. And the whole QE process honestly should be abolished. It should, or if they're going to use it to try to spark an economy and to give the government more spending power, it needs to be limited. Like he stretched it to 4 times the money the prior to him doing it, he multiplied that by 4. So that's a lot of money being pumped into the system, giving the government a lot of freedom to spend, and it didn't work out very well for anybody, including us. Thank you for watching our video. We hope you enjoyed it. And please let us know your thoughts in the comments, as well as any questions you may have. We're live most Saturdays at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so make sure to tune in. Thank you again for watching, and remember to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and click the bell icon so you can stay up to date on all our future uploads.